Hi, I'm Steve Rappaport, Knowledge Solutions Director for the Advertising Research Foundation and author of Listen First, Turning Social Media Conversations into Business Advantage. I'm sitting today talking with Rob Key, who is the CEO of Converseon, a full-service social media and listening agency. Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Well, we are now 10 years old, so and some folks have cited us as the first pure play social media consultancy, and we've seen a lot of changes over the last 10 years. A lot of us came out of the big agency environments. We're a bit of a mashup. We're part technology company, built social intelligence tools, but we also are a management consultancy. So once the companies have this social intelligence within the organization, how do they redesign business processes so they can take advantage of the opportunities that social intelligence provides? We also have some agency services. So some people aren't quite sure to say, are you a consultancy or a technology company? But to our clients, it's simple because we say we just help you solve and help you leverage the opportunities that social media provides.
Yeah. Now, you said something that was really interesting, which is you've been in business now for 10 years. And I don't know if there are any other companies that have been at this for 10 years. So what are some of the changes that you've seen? Where did it start from and where is it going now?
Right. Well, I think what we saw at the beginning was that it really started with basic use cases. I mean, I think what happens in the industry that people always go back to frameworks that they kind of know and understand. And so in the early days, it was very much about maybe the PR group, kind of press clippings. That was kind of a nice analogy to understand, well, these conversations are happening. They're kind of like press clippings. Let's look at press clippings. We call that monitoring, and they're still a very important component of monitoring. But in the early days, in 2001, we were talking about GeoCities and, environments like that, right? Yeah. Things that are long gone. What we knew back then, though, was that the evolution of human communication was going to continue. It was going to be more immediate. It was going to be more networked. It was going to be more real. It was going to be more authentic. We never, I don't think even then, anticipated the terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data and conversations that we're listening to every day. We're listening to more than 250 million conversations on a daily basis. And so what we've really seen happen is the arc over the last 10 years then is there have been these moments of epiphany through organizations and saying, this could help me with product development and research. Market intelligence and market research now we've really seen that movement over the last 2 or 3 years where they're saying, this is an amazing, what we have. These conversations are so inspiring and meaningful and give us deep understanding of things that we couldn't get at before. But we're only at the beginning because there are use cases that are starting to proliferate across the enterprises in all kinds of other areas, customer care, etc. So this is really a big enterprise thing. There are dozens of use cases for this thing called social intelligence, and we're only scraping the surface.
Yeah, you said something I found really interesting, which is use the phrase human communication. And there's lots of technology out there. Anybody who's listening to this interview probably knows that there's zillions and zillions of technology solutions out there, and you have one. But I want to ask about, but it's not just the technology, it's the interpretation of the information and the data that you get.
Right.
And so if we're talking about human communication, what are some of the ways that we need to change the way that we analyze and interpret data?
Right. Well, I think exactly what you said, the evolution of human communication is what we need to ground ourselves in, because we do get really caught up with sentiment analysis and natural language processing and RSS feeds and all these other things, and is it Twitter and is it Facebook and what platform is it today and is it Koala tomorrow and all these other things. Yeah. I sometimes say, we're still kind of Neanderthals with Flint. These solutions and these platforms are going to evolve, and some platforms will come and go, and other things will stick. But what we do know is that if we keep ourselves grounded in the way humans communicate, you listen first. They're figuring at a very subconscious level of who's influential, who's not. How am I going to fit in? What are the topics? How do I fit into that? They say it. They see what the impact is in a very subliminal way, and they're doing it all over again. This is happening constantly with human. Now, the other part of interesting about human communication is that 80% of human communication is nonverbal.
Right.
It's body language and cultural cues, and anybody who's been in a conversation with a sensitive topic with a family member or anyone else knows that probably text and IM isn't the best way to kind of get to those things. So the social intelligence technologies have been very much about explicit conversation. That's, I hate my cell phone, I like this, etc. The next generation, though, is absolutely bringing in human intelligence into it and human intelligence into the interpretation to get to implicit meaning and sarcasm and all these other cues, what a person really says but means but doesn't really say it. Now, how do you do that? you have to scale human intelligence. And so there's a hybrid solution around having machines do what they do well, finding anomalies, cleaning out spam, doing some basic metrics, and then having human intelligence through machine learning type technologies to scale human intelligence so that so you can get to that nuance of human communication too. But we will always need researchers and others who are able to look at this and say, what's the eureka moment here? As the quote I sometimes use is Henry Ford saying, if I had listened to my customers, everyone would have told me they wanted a faster horse, right? So how do you take these epiphanies and actually take them into an organization, right? So you have to find them. But then how do you get them into an organization so they're actioned on? And that's the whole element about social frameworks that are emerging. This is why this is transforming businesses. This is why you need those ideas to percolate across the organization and be agile enough to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So the human element, I think for a lot of people, thankfully, is going to be here and needed for a very long time.
Yeah. You talk about social intelligence being important for large enterprises. Well, these large enterprises are global, right? They're operating not in one country or two countries,
right,
but hundreds of countries at a time.
Right.
And they need to share this information from all around the world with everybody all around the world. But there are challenges because local market, there's so many languages. So how does a company deal with really creating, putting in an enterprise framework that really has to be global?
Right. Well, the first thing you realize with the big companies like that is they often have dozens of different type of implementation and things happening across the fringe of the organization or within groups or running a little renegade or doing a little guerrilla or maybe under stovepipe type implementations with a sponsored solution. So all it takes is it's very much like what the web looked like, the internet just generally looked like with company websites in like 98, 99. Every business group had its own website and you had different analytics and you had different solutions and you had no consistency. And people started to realize this is crazy. We need to create a consistency of the organization for those things that need to be consistent. So it is metrics, and it's listening, and the social intelligence, and the use cases, and the compliance, and the governance, and the training. Now, within that, all you're doing is creating the guardrails, and within that, there's a lot of implementation that can happen. So what we really advocate is finding what are those commonalities that really make sense. And then within that, allowing for great room for improvisation of these different businesses and these different regions to be able to work within that. And given that a lot of these things are happening already, it just makes logical sense for companies to say, we need to get a little bit of hold of this.
Yeah.
And the frameworks really need to be about empowering people to do things and not telling them what they can't do things. You can't do a top-down approach that becomes oppressive. Right. So those are the frameworks that are emerging. I think companies have come to realize that they're at this moment where they need to go from this kind of scattershot approach to enterprise systematic approaches that are still very flexible and built into their environment.
Okay, last question. Just going back to your 10 years, and that is that from your vantage point of being able to look out a decade now, right, where are the new applications? What are the emerging applications that are coming? Which ones do you think will come first?
Well, I mean, I think what we're going to see is, I like to go back to, the evolution of human communication piece. And like within Converseon, what's really interesting is that, we have the combination of technologists, but also linguists and sociologists and cultural anthropologists and others, and you have this mashup approach that really becomes kind of interesting. But I think what we're going to see is everything's going to be more immediate, it's going to be more pervasive. This thing called social media won't be called such social media anymore. It'll just be within the DNA of the entire organization in many different ways. But I mean, I think the things that are most immediate, 10 years out, I can't even really think about.
No, just what's coming in the next few years.
I mean, customer care is obviously a big piece of how do you take this social intelligence data and start to get it into the plumbing of a large organization so that you're having more unified views of who customers are and what they're doing across the entire organization. I think what we're seeing is companies have data everywhere. So I think what we're going to see is social intelligence will start to become that glue to help glue other different data sets together to start to see what the correlation is and the impacts are around media data, web analytics data, sales data, etc. So we'll really start to have a deeper understanding of what's really happening at the organization. I think social intelligence is a really nice place because it touches so much of the organization for that to become a stepping stone to help make that happen. And so this stuff won't exist by itself. It'll be everywhere and pervasive. So we're actually sitting at an incredibly interesting place right now, right in the center of big data, sentiment analysis, and analytics, along with the ability to do storytelling and cultural anthropology and other things. So as Forbes recently wrote, that the next great companies will come out of that type of space. And so we think we're at the very front end of this, and it's a really exciting place to be.
Well, thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.